wait for that to, it may or may not work. And looks like we're live there. Oh, how do I mute that? That's going to be, there we go. Okay, that's muted. That's minimized. I'm going to hit record here and we'll be off to the races. And we're live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Howdy, y'all. Andy McCabe here with the Claim Clinic and claims delegates, as you can see with my logos all over the place. I have the pleasure of sitting down virtually from across the country with Mr. Tom Mcguire. Tom Mcguire runs Large Loss Mastery and Large Loss Mastery Elite. I had the pleasure of attending one of his courses in Orlando. We got to look at rockets. It was on my bucket list to go to the Cape, see the rockets, and even while we were there, we got to see a SpaceX launch one of those nights. It was amazing. So Large Loss Mastery, and Tom, you can correct me if I get any of this wrong, is a course designed to help people like me, project managers, estimators in the insurance space, quickly and smartly estimate large losses. Tom's been in the industry for 34 years, and he one of the case studies he gave in class was the 1993 World Trade Center bombing in New York, and he was on site there handling that loss with 2,000 of his favorite technicians, I'm sure. But since then, he's seen a big gap in the industry between just a skill set gap of folks. There's a ton of folks that can handle your day-to-day washing machine overflows, but there's a very small niche of people that actually have the proper expertise to handle a true large loss. So, Tom, welcome. How you been, man?
Been good. Thank you very much. We just introduced a new large loss mastery class since you did the elite course in Cape Canaveral. We're just wrapping up on the book for Large Loss Mastery Next, which is our project management class. Large Loss Mastery Elite which is the manual that you have there, is primarily estimating, contracting, scoping, critical path management. And then in the Large Loss Mastery Next class, we get into complex project management. And we actually pick up right where we leave off with the elite course. So for example, with Next, we'll be in Cape Canaveral in December, and we're going to pick up right where we left off with the winning proposal from the last elite course at Kennedy Space Center.
Spoiler alert, my team did not win.
And so, we try to...
Every class is broken up to teams of 3 or 4 people, and we have the same scope. We have the same scenario, and this particular scenario was to clean the Saturn V building.
Well,
after smoke damage. Is that what it was?
So you had the Saturn V building and the Atlantis building.
Yep.
Both buildings, and so we mix in a little bit of fun with a good case study. It's really meant to get everybody outside of the box.
Yes.
And to realize that, because people think, "Wow, man, I never do large loss." Well, but you know what? There's really no difference between a large loss and a small loss. The only difference is your capacity to afford to do the job, and to the resources to do it. So either money or people. And my theory is, go find those jobs and team up with people that have the resources to help you get where you want to get. Don't just say, I don't do that. Because then you're limiting yourself, you're limiting your scope that you can, do. And why would you do that? Why would you limit the amount of money that you can make?
Yeah,
And
do
so,
that.
so it's when you look at losses the same, and we do the losses all the same. So what we do in large loss mastery is teach the best practices of the industry.
Mm,
So if you're doing the best practices of the industry, the size of the job doesn't matter. If you're doing them all the same and following the same procedures, you're going to be fine no matter what you do. And so, and that's where, that's what I love about what we have going on with large loss mastery. And it's been a tough year. It's, there's probably, if you sat down and figured out what would be the worst thing that that could happen to a training in seminar business, it would be, yeah,
not a
COVID-19
global
would probably,
pandemic. Yes.
yeah, be right up there. um, and, but with that said, we are sold out. Next week we'll be in Washington D.C. at the Air and Space Museum.
So you guys going
We,
to do that? How are you going to do that? Social distancing and masks and things like that. What are you going to do there?
well, I have several things. They weren't sure when they were going to be able to let anybody in,
Oh,
if they were even going to do that this year. And so I have a virtual tour that we already have prepared.
sure.
Um, However, I got an email this morning saying, Tom, we are opening up Friday. And
Oh,
so, yeah, our
goodness.
class starts
Just
on
in
Monday
time.
and
Just
they
in
are opening up on Friday.
Now, do you have
And
any spots left in that with a courageous person who might be watching this live? You have any spots left in that class for DC?
we are sold out. There might be one spot that we can always squeeze somebody else in. We are social distancing and doing all of that, and the Smithsonian there's guidelines that we have to follow there too. But we might have room for one or two. You never know.
Okay. All right.
But
So you're saying there's a chance. You're
there is
saying,
always a chance. I'm not one to ever say no without some type of uh, of note.
sure, asterisks.
Yes.
So let's define our terms for the audience. What is a large loss? I've got clients that, yeah, as you know, as most of
Hmm.
the audience should know, if you don't, you're about to learn. I write exactimate estimates for people
Hmm.
across the country for contractors, and I have clients that will call me. They say I have a monster loss. I'm like, okay, well, what do you got? It's $50,000, and to them it might be the largest loss I've ever
Hmm.
handled. So why don't you, Tom? Why don't you give us the definition of what you would consider a large loss?
Well, large loss is really defined on complexity and not necessarily on dollar value. Because
Sure.
if you do just dollar value, then a large loss can be $10,000 or it can be 10 million or 100 million. Um, but really, it's complexity because you can have, for example, you can have a $10 million drying job that you have 6 technicians on, a fuel supplier, and
Mm,
equipment, and that's all they're doing is doing moisture content readings and checking on equipment.
and babysitting equipment. Yeah.
Yes. Or you can have a $200,000 job that you have to finish in 5 days, and you have 300 people, and that is much more complex.
Hmm.
And so what actually, so I used to think of large loss as a dollar value. Now it's more complexity. What is the complexity of the loss? And so, because a lot of times that plays in more than anything.
Right. Complexity.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Give us the 30,000 foot view of the event, the bombing of the World Trade Center in New York in 1993. How many people were operating on that job?
Well, that was a monster job, and
Huge.
that was back, and I
That's
was
like
one
another
of.
level. That's like beyond large loss. Large loss squared. Yes.
We had 8.8 million square feet. I was one of 11 of the project managers slash supervisors slash. You did a little bit of everything. There was 11 of us that we covered different pieces of the pie, and all of us are still in the industry in one way or another, to this day. and and so it was an unbelievable experience. I was 26 years old at the time, and and just a kid really, and just had an unbelievable time. And but you know, we had we had 8.8 million square feet to do in 16 days, and we did it where we cleaned, you know, 8.8 million square feet, you know, 600 and some 100,000 square feet a day,
That is a monster.
over 3,000 production labor per day. Um, we managed to scrape up about 180 supervisors. We literally had to, if you knew, you know, when what we we had to call around and find cousins and uncles that weren't working, and
I
they might
bet.
be, they were unemployed yesterday, but now you're a supervisor on the World Trade Center on the biggest project, you know, that's there's been. And so um, it was very exciting, very patriotic. Uh,
Mm.
People worked hard. Union people were working like it was, you would never believe, you know, how hard they were working to make it happen. You know, and it was a great experience and a great job. It went very well. Everybody was really happy, and that was something else. It was really special. We had some uh, incredible people involved with writing the scope, writing,
Mm.
you know, all the things I wasn't involved with on that job. I was I was wet behind the ears at that
You didn't
point.
know what you didn't know at that point.
Exactly, exactly. It was very enjoyable. I ended up staying and completing the hotel, the Vista Hotel, which was connected to the towers, which is actually where the bomb went off,
Mm.
and stayed there. I think we wrapped up there in July, just after the 4th of July. And so it was an incredible experience. It was an experience that I wish that every restorer in America or any restorer around the world could experience, because it was a once in a lifetime thing that was just amazing.
If that were to happen today, would it be the same job? Could you do it the same way? What has changed over the last 30 years? Is it
Um,
30 years? I might check my math, somebody, but give or
well,
take.
yeah, if it was done today, it was just one company that did it. You know, we were one company. There was a few floors that we didn't do. I think we had about 8 floors that we didn't do, that were part of another company's contract. And we, if it were done today, they would probably, you know, what was really driving it back then was it was $1 million a day in rent that they were losing in the rent, not in the business interruption. That was just in rent, that the Port Authority was losing, and so that gave them a little emphasis to move quickly.
Mm.
If it happened today, it would probably be a case where they would divide the job up into sections. I doubt that it would get done, because they probably would have 3 or 4 companies working on it instead of just one company. But you know, giving it to one company was how it got done as quickly as it did. If you
Sure.
would have four companies and divided the building up into the buildings into fours, it would have bogged down, and it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, it'd be done next year.
Yeah, it would have been just a nightmare. And so yeah, we didn't. It was a great job. We had a great group of people. It was a once in a lifetime thing. It was the whole thing was just amazing, and it was amazing to pull it off. It was amazing to be a part of that team that did it. We had again, we had the best of the best with
Wow.
us to do that job.
All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. This is, for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm holding up the inch and a half thick manual that you get coming out of the large loss mastery class. You got forms, you got document recovery, you got commercial drawing calculators, project planning, job cost management. I mean, we covered all this. And the reason that we get this book is because you can't possibly retain it all over 3 days or 4 days. What was a 3 day class? So
That
you get
one,
a book,
yeah,
you get a
that one was
refresh.
yeah, that one was 4 days.
Yeah.
It's what we did with, and we've even made it a little bit more interesting, because I've taken that 4 day class and now it's a 3 day.
Oh,
And so you have a you have a day less to get everything done. And so it's intense. But there are days where we might go 12, 14 hours.
Yep.
But we have fun. We the competition is a lot of fun with the elite course. And that's a big part of it. I don't want I My intention is to have high quality, entertaining courses to
Mm.
where when it's over with, it's not like you're clawing to get out the door or you're clawing your eyes out in the middle of so it's very important. I have very specific specifications for the size of rooms that I like to present in,
Mm-hmm.
ceiling height, all of that stuff. I prefer a triple screen. I've got a new set that we're debuting in Washington next week, which is
Nice.
30 foot a screen. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and so it's when you see the case study going across that, it's a trip. And some of the people who have motion sickness may want to take some Dramamine before we watch the case study, because it's really cool. And I spend a lot of time uh, in this, especially now with COVID. I mean, this is my office right now, and this is where I am almost all the time. And so I have taken advantage of the COVID, and I work all the time. So I get up, come here and sit in this chair, and at night I go back to bed, and because we're just busy creating stuff and updating. Since that manual that you have there, we have two more. So that one I'm looking at, and man, that's an old one, but and that's only
It's only a year.
it's only a year, but but that's how I operate. Um, Everything changes. Each class is a little bit different. You could actually go and do the elite course, and I have people that have done it twice. And
Mm.
the second time they do it, they're like, "Man, it was better the second time."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really shoot for. I don't. It's not the same material. It's not your dad's PowerPoint where it's like, "Oh my God, what is this?" I like to take people on a little journey. And so, I spend hours and hours and hours on putting the show together. And so I'm very excited to get back on stage,
Good.
next week.
I'm glad things worked out. And next week's going to be awesome for those
Yep.
people that
Yep.
get. So take me. Answer me this: what type of person? Not type of person. Who should take this class? And what is your goal for your students coming out of one of these courses?
My goal is to level the playing field. And so my goal is to bring out the best practices of the industry, because the gap in our industry has grown so much. Where we used to have, you know back in the day, I think we trained a little better because there wasn't so many. Now there's so many contractors, and they're all over the place. They might have been one thing yesterday, now they're a restorer. And so they got some certificates, and off they go. And so
Mm-hmm.
and so they don't really know the history of the industry. They don't really know the best practices of the industry. And that's really what large loss mastery is about. When attendees leave one of my classes, they have everything. They have everything that's ever happened in this business: what works, what doesn't work, and why it works, and why it's been like that. Why are these best practices there? Where did they come from? And so it's my job to take everybody on a little journey, but also when we're done with that journey, they have um, tools that they can put to work immediately. So
Mm.
there's no,
Okay.
there's, they're they're not getting a book that you can't use. You're getting information that you can use, and that has been around for a long time. So most of the stuff that we talk about, the techniques we talk about, have been around for a long time, but they're not taught anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I say, something that somebody should know, when we talk about an industry that's only about 40 years old, and then half of the people in it now have only been in it for about 10 years.
If that.
There's a lot that they don't know. And so that's my job to do that. So with the elite course, the elite course is your estimating, contracting, scoping, and your critical path. Then the large loss mastery next is the project management part of it. So
Okay.
that's it. So you have two different groups that you can, it can
So
be.
the elite side is more of the front end sales, because you've got to estimate the job before you can win the job. And then the next is the actual running
Yep.
the job. Okay.
Yep. Yep. The elite course, it could be for anybody that is in management, anybody that is going to walk on that job that is in a management position, can go to an elite class. It's not necessarily a sales class as much as it is a management
Mm,
for management level.
sure.
In the project management class, that could be anybody. And that again could be the owner of the company, or it could be, your project managers that you want to take to another level. Because what we're going to go over, it's pretty intense. And again, everything is jammed into 3 days
Mm,
with the case study. And I've added more interactive case studies that we go through. And so a lot of projects that have gone right and some that didn't go so right. And so
mhm.
you can learn more off the ones that don't go right. You don't talk about those that much.
Yeah, well, I find it amazing, and what you brought up a moment ago is very poignant. That we have guys, maybe they're carpet cleaners yesterday, or they're just coming out of college, and they're taking their first job, but all of a sudden they could be in a position where they're spending $1 million of somebody else's money
Yeah.
on $1 million project, or worse, they're spending $1 million on a $2 million project and getting in trouble. Um, but there's nothing teaching this. This might feel like an advertisement for large loss mastery, but the reality is, who else is teaching this stuff? Nobody.
No, there isn't a best practice class. There are some very good project man or large loss related classes out there that are great, and I like all of the instructors and all of and everybody involved. But this is a very unique class, and I wanted it to be that way. Um, I wanted it to be something that there isn't, because it wasn't my intention to create something that competed with anybody else's class, because I wanted to be on a different level. I wanted to be on my own level, and that's and it just so worked out. It worked out that way to where it was like, okay, this is needed, and so the information that we provide is solid, and it's been used and operated by the biggest companies in the business, and it's just the best practices.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do, and if you do the right thing, then 9 times out of 10, if you fall into that audit in any of that, then you know the process, you know what to expect. It's not like, oh, they're picking on me or anything like that. It's, this is what you need to have. You got to have your ducks in a row. If you don't have
Right.
your ducks in a row, you're gonna be in trouble no matter what you do.
Yeah. You can't just throw something in Exactimate and say, "Oh, the adjuster's going to pay it. No questions asked." That's just not how it works,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
on a large loss side. So let's talk about tools. I've got here a nice laminated. You'll recognize this, the
yep,
matrix,
yep,
and then the quick estimate. You get a little something
yep.
there.
Those are our rules of thumb.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And that'll get you close. How, yeah, coming out of, and I'm obviously leading into what we're going to talk about next, is the edge tool that you've come up with.
yep.
Prior to the edge, how long do you think it should have taken a project manager estimator to guesstimate a loss, the size of a loss? Let's go $1 million loss, 100,000 square feet.
Well, it varies. It varies on the estimator and what tools they have. If you had, even the tools prior to the edge, which the elite course teaches you, I mean, you can estimate any size loss if you know the background of the loss, if you know the size of the loss, the square footage, what type of building it is, what type of loss is it? Was it fire, water, whatever. If you have the details of the building, you can estimate it.
Mm.
And so what bogs people down is sometimes they get out of their league and they stress the number. They're
And
always
their eyes get this big, and they
and
start, looking to the size of the elephant, trying to, can't
they
even figure
and
out
they
how to take its
stress,
first
yeah,
bite.
they stress on that number instead of stressing on what they need to do, and that's stressing on the scope of work. Make sure the
Wow.
scope of work is good. Make sure your work plan is good. They'll spend all their time on that number.
Mm.
And so one of the goals with Large Loss Mastery Elite was to create a program where you can estimate quickly, accurately, and then focus back onto the scope of work, which we have scope of work templates and T&M contract templates to make it easy to go through the process of estimating. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We
Mm.
give you all of the tools that you need, all the templates you need, all of the guidance that you need. And now the edge comes along, and everything that I teach in that class for a day, now we can do in minutes. And so it's changed. I had to add a few more case studies to the class because it has changed the dynamics of it. But
Sure.
when you open up the eyes and everybody can see that, wow, this thing it estimates very, very quickly, and it is very accurate. What I always welcome my users to do, and they always do, is they go and they'll take up a project that they've done, or it'll be a project they're working on that they may have just estimated. Some of them have taken 2 days to estimate,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we'll run the numbers in about 30 minutes. And so it's really exciting, and I love to
Why?
hear back from them when they're talking about all of that. In customers that have windows where they have to provide an estimate within 48 hours is their window that they have to provide the estimate on for their national accounts. We give them the possibility of creating an estimate in minutes, in 48 minutes instead of 48 hours. And so that's really the essence of the edge. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and it's evolving. We will have the third edition of the edge. We came out in April with the first edition,
Nice.
and like I said, I'm always evolving. And so we've already had the second edition, and we're in July, and the third edition will be out by probably in September and October, and that's going to tie directly into a scope of work, drop down menus and everything for a scope of work. And so it's very exciting, and I love it because it's a tool that it's very easy to use, very easy to learn. You don't have to go through a lot of classes, and if you have an issue, you just call me, and I'll
Mm.
walk you through it. And I mean,
Nice.
it's that cool.
Well, I'm gonna grab a soda from the fridge here. Why
All
don't you
right,
pull it up on screen and we'll walk through it?
all right.
It's going to be 100 degrees here in Bend today. We're not used to that kind of heat here.
It's hot for you guys.
Yeah.
It is hot everywhere. I mean, we've been in the hundreds, and we're never in the hundreds here. About the highest that we'll get would be 95, 96 at the highest on the beach here. You know,
Well, with
it is
that humidity, forget about it. You can
it is
have it.
it is so it is so rare, for us to be this hot, but it's like that everywhere. I don't know any place that it's not hot as hell right now.
Well, I tell new people getting into the restoration industry that it's Mother Nature is taking care of us because she is ensuring that there will be restorers needed forever, because she's serving up 100-year weather events at 3-year intervals. So there's we've there will always be enough work, and there will be few times where there's enough restorers. Plain and simple fact is there's never enough. One of my missions, and I think it jives with your mission, Tom, is I want to bring as many people into the fold as possible with the best tools and the best education. Because I see what you're seeing is we got a lot of, frankly, hacks out there. We got a lot of people doing this for the wrong reasons because they see dollar signs, and they're a roofer doing hail, and they're like, oh, well, there's so much money in this restoration side of it. And they jump in without really understanding it and having the right tools.
Well, there are throughout the industry, the experience level has been diluted, from all ends, from the carrier side to the adjuster side, the consultant side. Most of the consultants that are out there are friends of mine, and so we all worked together all at one time and at one point or another, because back in the day there weren't 6,000 companies. There was a handful of us.
Yep.
Back in the 80s and early 90s, there were literally a handful of companies that did restoration, nationwide. And so now it's changed so much, and with that rapid growth, the experience level of actually doing projects is very low, or understanding projects, and it's across the spectrum. And that's why the large loss mastery classes are really for everybody. They're for adjusters, risk managers, consultants, contractors. They're for everybody, because we cover the best practices, which everybody should know and understand. And so that's a beautiful thing.
Common knowledge is not so common. So.
Well, and that's exactly right. And that's what I realized was, man, people that should know what a time and materials contract is don't know what a time. You got to hire a consultant to tell you what a time.
What part of Xactimate does that in, Tom?
And so there is a big gap. And so it's my goal to just bring common sense and the best practices back to the restoration world, and yes, present it to everybody.
All right, lay the framework here, lay the foundation for us. What are we looking at here?
Well, the Edge is an estimating tool that I think originally I had thought about back in 93, 94, 95, when we were doing a lot of estimating. Because back then,
we graduated high school in 1993. Come on now.
Well, some of us weren't, and so some of us were creating the industry that we currently have, and so
thank you for that.
And so back then, the estimating tools that we had were, if you were lucky, I mean, you actually had something that, the contracts. It was legal pads and calculators.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were lucky, you might have some carbon paper, some carbon documents. And my early days, we used to walk around with in my company van, there was a binder that was just full of all these documents that were carbon, and you would write on them, and it would create all these copies, and somebody would get the pink copy, somebody would get the yellow copy, and it was just god awful.
And you were the last one, so you got the bottom copy you could even read.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I mean, this is like 1994, 95, so it's not really that long ago. The first
only
laptop.
25 years.
Yeah, the first laptop was only 1993 and 92 was the first laptop, and so the tools that we have now to track jobs, and to document jobs have never been better. Um, Xactimate, Time and Materials Pro, they're all the pro, what's all of the other ones. They're all good. Everybody, and they all serve a purpose. I think sometimes we overdo it with our documentation. Like, do we really need 5,000 pictures of the same wall? And probably not.
No.
And so the one thing that hasn't changed is the way that we actually do the job. Because when we talk about labor and cleaning and everything that goes, when we're getting ready to talk about production rates, and how much one person can do in an 8-hour period, that hasn't really changed in 40 years, because people,
the cost has changed, but the actual activity has not. You're right.
we have better tools, we have extension poles, we have lifts, we're we used to have to do everything off scaffolding, so
But we do have drones. There's that.
and we have drones, we have things that help us get there. But when it actually comes to doing the work where we have labor, it's pretty much the same. Nothing has really changed there. And so that's why the techniques that we've plugged into the edge are so relevant and so accurate, because it's information that has been around forever. And it's all based on historical data.
You've got a tool here that understands labor yield. It understands different types of activities. How many different types of activities will this cover?
Well, let's go through it.
Oh, well,
let's go through it. Let's
away.
Yeah, we can answer that question here shortly.
Okay.
So we're going to start at
what imaginary job are we about to estimate?
We're going to make up, we've got a 65,000 square foot building that we're going to do a fire and water damage. It's going to be for ABC Metals here. It's in Cocoa Beach, Florida. We start at the top here with just our basic information. I took the liberty of filling that in so I didn't bore anybody watching me try and type. And so this is the basic information. We've got a fire and water damage. And our first stop, and this will look familiar for your elite course.
Mm-hmm.
Our first stop is going to be our project descriptions.
How big is the affected area?
Yes, and so we're going to enter in the square feet of the affected area. And so 65,000 square feet. And we're going to give
this is where the client starts to restrict us right out of the gates. I have to be open tomorrow. Sorry, you're not going to be open tomorrow, but let's give it 7 days.
And that's where you set priorities. So yes. With this one, it's a big job. They got a lot going on. We're going to do 21 days.
Okay.
So with those two entries, and you'll see down here in my production rate area, we have this one highlighted, the 150. This is our most common. So 150 square feet per person per day is the most common. It's all based on historical data.
Detailed cleaning.
Yes, and so there's a little description here, but just by making those two entries, and this is our default, so this is automatically going to be lit up. And
I'm going to read these for the podcast audience, so you don't have to find a video somewhere. So level 1, least difficult, is what is labeled.
Yep.
You just move the screen over. There we go. It says somebody can get 400 plus square feet daily production rate per worker. Minimal damage, smoke, soot, water, removable drywall, sanitized, $6 per foot. Horizontal surfaces only cleaning, no mold, no union labor, no prevailing wage. Okay, so it's an easy one. This is an easy project. Okay, level 2 takes it from 400 square foot of yield to 200 square foot daily production rate. Light to moderate smoke damage, All surface cleaning, selective demo, not a complex project, no union again. How big of a, side note, how big of a factor was the union in 1993 at the World Trade Center?
Uh, well, the union, because we were in a fortunate situation there where we weren't paying the laborers. They were paid through their because they were all a function of the operations there at the World Trade Center. And so we didn't have to pay them directly.
Got it.
They were all
That makes it
paid
easy.
by the companies that they worked for.
That makes it a lot
Um,
easier.
we got paid primarily to manage the project.
Okay.
And the union labor, which usually would have been an issue to get, when you're a company from Atlanta doing business in New York City, getting union people to do anything is usually kind of tough.
Yeah, Guido's going to be waiting around the corner for you if you're not careful.
Well, they
Okay.
were all great, and the thing about what worked out so well with them was patriotic. Everybody had a patriotism, built-in patriotism that was uh, amazing. And
For
so
sure.
everybody was working hard, and so it was it was it was it was the right company for the right job at the right time,
Perfect.
and it just worked out that way. And union union and prevailing wage, you always got to know your projects when you're working on. Make sure you know that you're not estimating a job and finding out down the road that it's a union or prevailing wage job. You'd be surprised how many people get caught in that prevailing wage, especially.
Yes.
And you put together a $2 million job, and then you find out, oh, all those laborers are actually you have to double
It
your.
nearly doubles the
Yeah,
cost. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I always tell the story. Not to now we're way off the subject. I promise I'll get back to this. I promise I'll get back to what we're talking about here. But I was working a temp job in college, and I got it was just they send you wherever in the city they need somebody. So this Toyota, I think it was a parts delivery. It is where all the Toyota parts for Portland, Oregon, were distributed out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they hired me for a week. They had a week's worth of what they thought was a week's worth of work, and I was taking apart these manifolds or the gasket manifold cover gasket. Anyway, it all had to be taken apart in 4 different bins to be recycled. Blah blah blah. I get in there on day one. I'm just going. And at lunch on day one of the guys is, the union guys walking around the parts puller. He takes me aside and says, "What are you doing, man?" I'm like, "I don't know. What do you mean? Slow down. You're going too fast. You've got all week." And I was like, that was my lesson in union. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
won't be in a hurry.
Don't upset the apple cart. There's an old one for you.
You're making us look bad. Okay. So, level 3, it says here's the most common scenario: 150 square foot of production per worker a day, moderate damage, moderate complexity, water, soot, smoke, blah blah. Some encumbrances such as elevator issues. If you are sharing an elevator, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
prevent. I mean, that's going to slow you down. If you have the more people you have on that job having to use that same elevator, you're not going to get as much work done. Level 4, 115 square foot, heavy damage, high security, complex project, union or prevailing wage, encumbrances. Level 5, 75 square foot daily production rate. That is, tell me what a level 5 project would be. What would that look like?
That would be a very rare. That would be a rare project, and it's important when we're talking about square feet, and you'll have people that'll say, hey, "Man, I know my guys can clean a lot more than 150 square feet a day." What you have to remember, that's what we're estimating it by. The
Mm,
production of it is going to be everything in that 150 square feet. So, if you picture a hotel room. A small hotel room would be 100. The average hotel room is 300 square feet. So 150 square feet. How much? And you're sitting in that hotel room. Could you clean your entire hotel room? The everything, the contents, the floor, ceilings, walls, everything in an 8-hour period. And so that would be, could you do it with two people? The chances are yes, and with a light damage. If it's heavy, you might have some things that will play in there. But when you're talking about a 75, this most difficult, this is going to be a project where you'll be high PPE, you'll be in maybe it's like we're here in the summertime, maybe it's a job where there's no cooling, it's hot,
Mm-hmm.
and
A
you
lot
have to,
more breaks.
yep, and you have to, maybe you're doing 1 hour, you're in 1 hour and you come out. So you're going through a lot of PPE, you're doing a lot of in and out of containment, those types of projects. Maybe it's a confined space, limited access. Maybe it's a multi-level building, 28 stories with no elevators and high PPE and, all of those things. So this is going to be a rare project, but they do exist. I've been on several of them like that. They're kind of a miserable experience when
Mm-hmm.
you're working them.
Just feel
Uh,
like you're going nowhere fast.
yeah, they're usually large projects, but sometimes they carry out over a course of a few months.
Mm.
But sometimes you could have that. It could be one job that you have that can be like that. It could be a residential that you could do with this. And that's the thing about the edge. You can also estimate residential. You can estimate COVID. It's not just limited. It's not just a large loss tool.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna bring up COVID. I got to imagine the level of PPE that restorers are going through today is about twice of what they were going through in February. Uh, so that
I,
does that play into this
I
calculus?
think I think most of the COVID numbers are between 1,000 and 1,500 square feet per day. So they're projects where you're moving pretty quickly.
Okay.
So they're not in that most difficult category. They would be down here in our custom area.
Because you're using foggers, you're using
Yeah. And you're
big
doing high
machines.
touch areas. You're doing, I mean, it's a pretty quick process. You're not doing all horizontal surfaces unless you need to.
Got it.
If somebody was diagnosed with COVID that was working there, the scope tends to be a little larger. But the
Yeah.
typical square footage price range is anywhere between 58 cents and 250
Okay. All
per
right. Let's
per
bring it.
square foot.
All right. Let me reel us back in. All right. So we've got fire and smoke damage, and
And we're going to stay with our
we're going to choose level
most
3.
common. Yeah.
Okay. 150 square foot daily production rate. All right.
Yep.
Let's go.
So that's our default. So just by
Typical $12 to $20 per square foot.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's there just kind of give you a little range.
Sure.
And so just by making those two entries, we already have I'm going to just scan down here. We already have our base number.
We got
And
a
we're going to
number. 7 seconds in, we got a number. Okay.
yes.
We're
And
going to
so
fine tune that now.
now we're going to come back up and go through it and kind of show. All right. So automatically our calculations are done for us. We have 2 supervisors and 21 laborers. It automatically calculated that for us.
Wow.
So so unlike when you went through the elite course where we had to do this all by hand and figure out our work quotient and all that, we've smoothed out the edges. Yeah, not no pun intended.
Well,
So
look at the little tiny little dots in this matrix thing. Oh, I went blind trying to figure it out. Yeah.
and so and from a default standpoint, I always put in a project manager, a project auditor, and then the supervisors are always calculated as well as production.
For those of us that have never run a large loss, why do we need a project auditor?
Well, that's going to be your accountant. That's going to be somebody that's collecting all the paperwork. And so a project audit, that's my definition of an auditor, is somebody that's collecting the paperwork. And this could be interchangeable. This could be a senior project manager.
Or some people call it a clerk.
or clerk. It could be anything.
Okay.
And everything is changeable here. All the rates and everything is changed. So what we can do is we're going to leave everything set just the way it is, 8 hours a day. But let's add in some technicians. So let's say we're going to add in, we got 4 techs,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do $65 an hour for the techs. Everybody's going to be 8 hours a day right now. No overtime at this point.
And so next, the next version of the Edge is going to allow you to put in your own schedule of fees into that.
Yes, you'll be able to save your rates in the next version of the Edge.
Perfect.
And so that's one of the main features for the upgrade. But and likewise, you can always add in whatever staff member you need, whoever it may be.
Got it.
And so with that, we have our total labor cost. Now, our associated project costs are all based on historical data over the last 30 years.
So yeah, let me reiterate that. These
Mhm.
percentages and this data comes from 30 years of actual stuff, actual projects done. This is not a guess. This is not a guesstimate.
No.
This is actual. This is experience, and
Yes.
you can't pay.
This is we're
You
making
can't buy
estimate.
30 years of restoration experience.
Yes.
It's amazing.
We're making estimating fun again.
Don't go too far, Tom.
All right. So, my default rates are I always set mine on the high end and then work my way back if I need to. I rarely change these unless I'm doing like a residential estimate. Then I'll come in and adjust them to fit. But I leave them all on the high end range. For example, normally supplies and materials are 10 to 25% of our billable labor costs. I will max it out at 25. Same with 20 of 21 for a small equipment, 21%. That's 10 to 21%. I just go to the high end because what I want to look at is what's my square footage number at the bottom, my bottom line square footage number. So these are our automatic calculators that generally I leave these alone, again, unless I'm doing a residential project. And so we'll go down to our next area. We're going to add in, let's say, a vendor, subcontractor. We'll do something with John Don.
And this is where you might get a quote from a supplier or vendor.
Yep. Yeah, this would be your subcontractors, your vendors.
Specialty item you can't produce in-house.
Yep.
Okay. Or job specific item. Okay.
Yes, this would be purchase supplies, and what we have right now is a purchase supply, and we don't really want to do that, but I don't want to get too much into it. But usually purchase supplies we want to work right off of our contract price. But if we do a purchase supply, this would be where it would go. It would only get marked up 10 and 10, as well as any subcontractors. So if you had,
we can change that markup if we wanted to.
What's that?
We could change that markup if we wanted to.
You could.
I'm just anticipating all the emails and comments I'm going to get in the threads here.
Well, 20%, 10 and 10 is the standard for T&M.
It's just accepted. How long has that been the accepted number?
Oh, that's from day one.
Okay.
From day one. Yeah. From 1980 when all of large loss started, 1980 and the MGM fire, excuse me, in Las Vegas was where all of this started. And so, all right. So, but 10 and 10, unlike your 10% markup on Xactimate, it's not the same. 10 and 10 markup is only on purchase supplies and subcontractors.
Okay. Everything else is schedule fees. Okay.
Yes.
Which, for everyone out there, if you're really listening, your schedule of fees should have your markup built into it.
Most of your rates should already have all of your markup in it, and the standards are out there. In fact, I have T&M templates and rate sheets that come with the Edge that are downloadable. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We give you all of that, and it's all based, and they're all competitive rates based on, because I also do consulting, and I get job files that come across my desk where people want to know what's up with this file, and so that's that's a whole nother class, and so
Yes, it is.
and so we've added in some subcontractors. Our next area is specialty items, specialty services. And if you're doing documents, so let's say we do documents in-house. Say we're going to throw in 1,000 square feet of documents, or 1,000 cubic feet of documents, because we always estimate documents on a cubic foot or by the linear foot. And we're going to do a quick and easy cleaning on them.
And that's not a big file room, really. That's maybe
No, 1,000,
120 square foot file room.
yeah, 1,000 cubic feet of documents can come in any size building, any size room. And so never overlook the documents. If you're on a project in an office building, in a medical facility, always ask them, where are your files? Are they damaged? Let's take a look at them, do some moisture content readings on them, make sure everything is all right. And so we've got a good job here. We've got a little bit of everything. And next is, again, some default ranges that I built in. I always use. They are just completely adjustable. These are square footage prices for drying. And again, these are all proven. These do have our markup in it. And so if we were using, for example, United Rentals, their cost on something like this is normally about $1.50.
Okay.
A square foot, and $1.50 to $1.75. And so this is what we're billing. So this is our billable rate.
One of the best little caveats from the class is do you need to dry it? A big steel building with a concrete floor and metal racks. Do you really need to bring in desiccant dehumidifiers? So maybe there is no structural drying there.
There may not be, and that's where ambient stabilization comes in. So maybe for example, we're going to be at the Smithsonian, the Air and Space Museum, next week, and part of the case study there is, it is a steel building, it's a concrete building, but it is a museum, and so there are certain specifications that you have to maintain museums at. And so part of the case study there will be structural drying. Yeah, that's going to be the easy part of it, but it's going to be more ambient stabilization. Yeah. It's going to be maintaining temperature.
DC in the middle of the summer with the humidity.
It's 100 degrees there today too also. Yeah. So it's
yeah. That's hit you in the face humidity. Yeah, I'm in the high desert here, thankfully.
So if we were going to do, we won't do stabilization for this job, but we're going to come down, since it's a fire job, we are going to do ambient deodorization. So we're going to enter in our 65,000.
But hydroxyl or something like that?
The number here is a happy number that I found between hydroxyls and PureCure and some of the other methods that are out there. I found that 55 cents is a good default. And again, these are all adjustable. You can adjust them up or down depending upon the type of project.
Not Xactimate rates. Got it.
Yeah. So then we're going to come down, our last stop before we get down to the bottom, because while we've been doing this, it's been tabulating. So we already know what our total is down here at the bottom.
It's getting sexier and sexier, Tom.
And so we're going to do a little bit of general reconstruction. So let's just say we're going to do some 5/8. We're just going to hang it. We're not going to finish it. Let's say we got 1,000 square feet of that. So just to have a little bit of everything in our job. We got a great job here. We got reconstruction. We got we got a little bit of everything. And you can see down here at the bottom, here's our production rate, 150. And here's our labor, our supplies, our vendor, our specialty, which includes our documents, our stabilization, our drying rates. And then here's our square footage number. This is the number that I'm looking for more than anything. Because remember, when we're talking about standard restoration projects, we want to be in that $10 to $15 range. That's our red zone. When we get outside of that, you get outside of $15 a square foot, you got to have a reason. And so when I talk about audit triggers and things like that to keep everybody off the radar screen, if you keep it under $15 a square foot, once you go over $15 a square foot, there has to be a reason. In union labor, things like that, or a lot of drying equipment, or a lot of specialty stuff. And so that's always the case. And so you can see here's our number. We're at $13 a square foot. I feel very comfortable with that. But let's go back up here and just say we selected 400.
I'll go back down a minute. And once again, for those folks in radio land, we are sitting at $861,866.
And we put that together in roughly 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a whole lot.
We talked 20 minutes.
Yeah. So you've got your labor totals, 228,000 in labor, 188 in supplies, 12,000 in specialty vendors, and specialty total. What's that number mean? Specialty total.
That was all of that was the this section here.
Okay.
Perfect. Which was our vital documents and drying and deodorization.
Structural drying, deodorization. Got it. All right, 861,000, but we're not done yet.
Well, then what we want to do is we can save a copy of the edge, and it'll save a ping copy of the information. For security purposes, we don't allow you to save the edge. And so you get to save a copy of the ping. What you do get to save, though, is everything has now created our summary cover sheet, which goes to the client. And if you're walking the project, you can see here's our totals for the project, our square footage number, here's our authorization. And what we want to do with this document is attach it to our scope of work, to our labor rates, to our equipment rates, and to our contractual terms. And so if you're walking the job and you have the edge on your tablet, you have literally just created your estimate in 15 minutes.
You download the PDF and email it to them.
Yes. And if you have DocuSign, you get down PDF, now you can have it signed while you're on the job. If you could go out into the truck after walking the job, you have your number right now, you attach it to all your legal documents, and you're done. And so literally,
or shoot it to somebody in your office who has all that, and then package it up and redo it. I got to tell you right now, if you've just done this and you've handed this document, this report to your client, or at this point, it may not even be a client. This is a proposal. This is somebody that, the loss happened yesterday, and they are scrambling. And you're probably not the only person walking this job at this point.
Nope.
Because they're vetting people in a hurry. If you just handed this document to the adjuster and the client right there, that automatically puts you in the top 5% of everyone in this industry.
Well, and what's going to happen here too, Andy, is in the next version, is the next step, the next version of the edge. The next step then is going to be to attach your scope of work. And so you'll have a button that you'll say scope of work, and you push the button, and it will give you drop down menu because I'm a keep it simple, stupid guy. And so the drop down menu will tell you everything. You pick out what goes in your scope, what doesn't apply. You just leave it in the menu, and then you create your scope. And then you'll have a little button that you can attach this to your scope of work, and then attach it to your contract terms and your rate
Wow.
sheets.
I like it.
So literally everything will be right here. You're going to what you do currently is you download everything onto your computer. When you push the save button, it goes to your computer. Currently, we do not save any information at all. And so, and that's on purpose. I don't want to know. And so in the future edge will be more data driven. And
Okay.
so that will be where you can store your data, where you can store your prices. Again, it's not something that I'm going to be interested in, but it just makes the functionality better for the user. And so very, very excited about it. Like I said at the beginning, I've got clients that, you know, they're on a 48-hour window that they have to provide an estimate, a budget number to their client for their national accounts. And we sat down and we were doing them in 48 minutes.
Yep.
And so a big slightly change in the way things can be done. And once you're comfortable with it and you sit there, I always have challenge everybody to come back and plug some numbers into it, plug a job into it. Even when we're doing stuff live, people will throw a job into it, and we're always within 1 to 2% of the actual project in minutes, and not hours or days.
That is amazing. So Tom, this was cool. I appreciate you coming on and educating
Thank
us.
you. Thank you. I
What
appreciate
I
the
can't
time.
I can't reiterate enough that this is not common knowledge. This is not common curriculum. This is just not taught. Now, I didn't come up through the Belfours and the Cottons of the world, so maybe it is taught within those company ecosystems, but at the restoration industry as a whole, this information is usually earned and learned the hard way, and that's the
Yep.
school of hard knocks, and that's very, very expensive.
Yep. Well,
Very
and that was the whole thing about putting the class together was for the first time ever, until that, the book that you had in your hand, that
Mhm.
was the first time the best practices of the industry have been written down
In
and
one
given
place.
in one place and made available to the entire industry. Whether you're a restorer, whether you're an adjuster, whether you're a risk manager, it's all there and it's all available. It's available for your use to make your life better. My feeling is I think that we've come a long way with a lot of great tools, but I do think that we overdo it and we're spending a little bit too much time on things that we shouldn't. You know, we should be spending times on other things, the scope of work and things of that nature. Um, and so it was my role is to bring it back and get people to think about things a little bit broader
Mm.
and maybe free some time up and remove the blinders. It's like, what, and that's what I really love doing. And so it's exciting. I can't wait for DC and to remove some blinders in DC and now that they're going to be they're just open on the 25th. That's exciting because our class starts on the 27th. And so we were unsure there, but a little luck there. It never hurts.
Yeah, never hurts. So how can what's what would you prefer? What's your preferred contact method? How can people get a hold of you?
They can call me. My number is on the website. You go to largelossmastery.com, and that's where you'll find the edge. That's where you'll find our upcoming classes. We do have upcoming classes in. Currently, we have LA that's in there, but LA's getting ready to go on lockdown, and so we probably won't be doing LA with our very first next class.
Mm.
And so our schedule is going to be will be in Chicago in September with Large Loss Mastery next, and then we'll be in Atlanta in October with Large Loss Mastery Elite. And then we'll be back in, yep, there we go.
Yeah, I'm just showing everyone. These are the past classes.
Yep, yep. And so if you go to largelossmastery.com, you'll see where we're going to be, our upcoming shows. And we'd love to have you. It's real easy to register and get the edge right there at the little top there. You just push on that button. It takes you right to where you want to go. And you also get, yep. And so.
Welcome to Large Loss Mastery, The Edge.
Oh.
My name is Tom Mcguire.
That's Tom Mcguire.
Got a little video there. Always got to have.
Always got to have some video.
And here's what you get with the Edge on this page. If you scan down here just a little bit.
Online training video series. Okay.
Yep. And you'll see.
Oh.
And so
templates.
So you get documents, you get time and material templates, pricing templates. Then there's contract templates, so you get the whole thing from soup to nuts. Mm-hmm. So you can get a look at what the contract should look like. It's just very, very exciting. It's my goal for everybody to have all of the tools that I have, and for everybody to be able to expand their horizons and to expand their business, and to maybe use some tools that take up a little less time. So maybe you can free up some time now, go sell some more work, go do some, enjoy life, whatever it is you got to do. You don't always have to be, working.
Amen. Amen. All right. On that note, we're going to stop working on this podcast. Once again, thanks a lot, Tom. It's great. I will try not to make it so long between getting a hold of you. It was great to catch up with you today.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put together some links, and we're going to produce this over the next week or so. So I'll be reaching out to get some links from you, some added resources maybe we want to give away.
Absolutely.
But all y'all out there, take advantage of this time. There is, as with everything, things only get more expensive, and time is a finite resource. So take advantage of your time. Learn as much as you can, so you can go do as much as you can right now, and provide better for your future. I'm a huge fan of large loss, and this course is just right along with that. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate it.
And get the Edge while it's still cheap.
Well, I was alluding to that. So, all right. Thanks, Tom.
Or inexpensive, I should say, not cheap.
Okay.
Cheers.